Tēnā koutou, e hoa ma, māmama, wahine ma, aha kua kei koe e mātaki mai ana. We've created what we're calling the Whare Tangata series, and it's all about Whare Tangata, but it's all really about us empowering ourselves with information, with kōrero, with wānanga, opportunities to discuss what is important to us. So, nau mai, ki roto i tēnei kōrero. Kei konei māua ko Kasey, and this is what we're calling the Ask Your Aunties. No, this is what we're calling a Q&A session, where we've got some pātai from our Kia ora mama community and some of the posts that we've had shared on our page, but also this is just my own little opportunity to throw some pātai at Kasey and for her and I to have this kōrero, or for us to have this kōrero. So please feel free to share your stories, to share your pātai, whatever it is you need to, but nau mai, kuhu mai ki tēnei kōrero, ki tēnei wānanga. Here we are again, Kasey.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. I've been looking forward to this the whole day, the whole time, because I have some questions that I want to ask you, selfishly. No, but I'm sure, I mean, whatever question comes from a mama applies to many other mama, right?
Aye.
So what we'll start with is a direct question from our Kia ora mama post that we had about contraception. And there was one around, I don't even know how to say it, so I'm going to call it what was the general term, which is tying of the tubes. What is the actual term for that?
Yeah, tubal ligation.
Tubal ligation.
Aye.
Yeah. So some of the questions around, you know, what is the procedure? Can you reverse that? And what does that mean long-term for you and your tinana?
Right.
Yeah, we'll just dive into that.
Yeah, kia ora. So ligation just means to tie. And so that's the part about tying tubes. Now we do it kind of two ways. So you can either have keyhole surgery. So the procedure is done under a general anaesthetic. So you come into the hohipera, the anaesthetist puts you to sleep for a little bit.
Nice.
There's a little camera that's put through your pito, or just under really, and then an instrument and another little cut just above your pubic bone. So then there's an instrument that using a camera can see your tubes, and you put two little clips. They're called filshy clips.
Wow.
To block those tubes, and so to block sperm from being able to get up and the egg to come from, or to come down, essentially. So that's one way. So keyhole surgery or laparoscopic tubal ligation. And then you can also get it at the time of cesarean section. So when you're having PP by cesarean section, because we are there.
May as well.
Yeah. And so some women who have decided to complete their whānau with that pregnancy will ask us to do it at the time of their cesarean section. And typically that one's not clips, because we are there. We don't have to do it keyhole and instruments. We can just tie and cut and tie, essentially.
Is it painful?
So from a surgery point of view, laparoscopic or keyhole does take a little bit of recovery. You've got that maybe 1 centimetre cut at your pito level, and then probably the same just above your pubic bone. So when you wake up, you might feel a little bit of mamai there. Yeah. And also with the keyhole stuff, for us to be able to see inside your puku, we actually use carbon dioxide gas to kind of bloat you. Otherwise, we're in the dark, swimming around bowel and all of that kind of thing. So that actually gives us our space to see everything. But when you wake up, you feel that. We can release some of it, but not all of it. And you feel tight, bloated, and sometimes it might kick off your ikura too. So then you have all that kind of mamai on top of. But it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. It's a day surgery. You're kind of in and out unless you live, far away from the hohipera and you want to stay overnight just in case. It's pretty minimally invasive, they say.
Yeah, they say. So there was another pātai on whether you can undo that, just to say,
reversal.
Yeah.
So yes, you can, but typically not here in Aotearoa. So it's definitely not publicly funded.
Yes, so you've got to pay for that yourself.
Got to pay for it yourself. And more often than not, that's overseas. And then they'll counsel you about how successful it is too, because it's not like 100% guarantee that it'll work. Yeah,
like
because
everything.
you've set up some scar tissue,
Yeah,
in terms of that blocking.
true.
So it may not work. But I've met heaps that it has.
Yeah. So why would any wahine want to actually go down this track? Is that the point of saying, okay, no, I no longer want to have children. This is going to stop that.
Yeah. So if I'm talking to whānau about their contraceptive options, there are reversible ones, like we talked earlier about Mirenas, pills, jadels, etc. And then there's what we call the non-reversible, and for us, that's tubal ligation. And so I have a kōrero to the whānau about, have you talked with your whānau? Are you sure you're finished?
Yeah.
And would you have any regret? Because that's a real, that's taumaha if they feel that after. And if there's any hesitation about whether or not they think they're finished, then I kind of have that kōrero then that it's probably not for you yet.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know, then don't do it, because it might not be able to be reversed.
Yeah. So be really clear on your choice, I guess. So that really clarifies a lot for some mama who've been asking about that. How does that affect your ikura? Yeah.
So for some of us, if we think about our whare tangata and we get our ikura that comes away or comes out, actually, you know, your whare tangata is kind of contracting, is pushing that near. But there are little release valves, which are your tubes too. And so sometimes when we block those tubes, your ikura might become a bit more painful and a bit heavier because it doesn't have those outlets as well. You've blocked those off and it's only got the one way to come out.
Of course.
And so I have that kōrero to our wahine that if you're already struggling with heavy and painful periods, is this a good choice for you? You may not, but you run the risk of it getting a bit worse.
Yeah. That's a really big thing to know.
Yep.
So kia kaha wahine mā ki te rapu e nei kōrero hei whāngai pia i tō whakaaro kia pai ai tō whakatau i a koe anō. Natural contraception. What is that? What does that look like?
Yeah.
I think I know, and I think I've explored some of those options, i.e. tracking my period, i.e. Non-hormonal contraception, just using ara ure or things like that. But what is natural contraception?
Natural fertility awareness, they say near,
kia ora.
I think. So disclaimer, like that's probably not my super area of expertise, but I think we need to know more about it because more wahine are turning to wanting that. And so that's about, it's all about timing ovulation and figuring out when you are most fertile.
Yes.
And if you're trying to avoid becoming hapu, then how you can kind of tell when that most fertile period is. So typically in our ikura cycle, just before we ovulate, or just as we ovulate, our body temperature goes up maybe a degree.
Wow.
And so fancy apps, fancy kits can help you kind of take your temperature and notice that difference. Interesting. Yeah. So there's your body temperature. There's your cervical mucus, which some of us might not want to look at. But, you know, if you're following this kaupapa, then you kind of have to, because it changes. And so before ovulation and when your egg, I guess, or your ovary is preparing to ovulate, your mucus is quite white. It's really thick and that sort of thing. And then as you ovulate, it becomes clearer and maybe a little bit more, they call it watery or slippery.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah. And it's weird when you don't know what that is. And you're like, what is this? That's what that is.
Apparently that's more hospitable to sperm, being able to
okay. Get up in there. Right.
Yeah. And so people will watch that too.
Yeah.
And then there is just timing your cycle and kind of knowing that you typically will ovulate about 12 or 14 days before you have your ikura. So that is one thing I have a kōrero to women about, because we all think, oh, it's just day 12 of my cycle.
Yes.
But actually that's based on a 28-day cycle.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the middle for that. But if you have longer cycle, say 35 or even 42 days, then actually you're a little bit later down the track than day 12.
What's the best way to track that? Because I feel like I know my cycle, and I've been tracking that a while. I've got an app, or I just use the health app on my iPhone. But what's the best way to do it? Is it like monitoring it over 3 months or something like that?
I think at least.
Yeah, right.
Because, we all know that sometimes we're a day or so out, but the more you monitor, then you can kind of work out your average.
Yeah.
What's your typical type of thing. And so I think apps are more popular and common now. Yeah. And so use those. They take kind of the hard work out of it.
Yeah, no, that's right. Because you're trying to like write in your calendar or this happened then. But I think that's a really good tip. Whakamahia, that's what they're there for, right? We were talking earlier about the pill and how that's structured, I guess. I don't know how to say that, but I thought that was such an interesting kōrero. Would you mind sharing that with our wahine?
Yeah, so we were talking about, the pill packet is 3 weeks of hormones and then a week of sugar pills, essentially, to make you have a withdrawal bleed, they call it. And that part of the reason why it was designed that way, 3 weeks, 1 week off, was to kind of mimic our natural cycle. But actually it was, it kind of had religious background as well, where, say, for example, in the Catholic faith, if you wanted to hide using a contraception, because actually it was kind of frowned upon to use contraception, that mimicked a natural cycle, and people wouldn't know that you were on it, and that you were still getting your monthly bleed. That's so interesting. So there's no science or medical reason why you have to have 3 weeks of hormones and then a break. You actually don't. You just take the whole, You can take the hormone pill every single day and not have a break at all. Your body will actually kind of have a break naturally, and you'll get your ikura at some point. But that pill packet was designed with a religious background.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So really, wahinema, you can just take it how you want to take it, which is you could take it every day and not get a period and just...
And that messes with people's mind, because they're like, what?
I know.
I thought I had to have one every single month. In my job, it becomes more important to me to have that kōrero around endometriosis, so the real mamai with your ikura. And so I try and ask women to take it continuously. And so I have
to help with that.
Yeah, to help that and settle that mamai. And so I have to have that kōrero around the background and the history of why it's in a little packet with 3 weeks and 1 week.
It's all religious background. I didn't know that. I'm sure many of us didn't know that. So that's thank you for sharing that. Just want to touch on you've kind of gone there. Endo. It's a silent mamai, mawiwi that a lot of our wahine are experiencing. What is it?
Yep.
How is it affecting us? What can we do about it?
So endometriosis is a condition where, so in your whare tangata, you have, say, 2 parts to it. You have the lining, and that's what sheds as your ikura every month. And then you have your muscle part in there, your contraction that, pushes out our pipi. And so there's muscle. So endometriosis is where those cells that line your womb are actually found outside in your pelvis. So they might be on the sides of your pelvis, by bladder, by bowel, but they're not in the right place. And that can be, as you develop as a
wahine?
As a wahine, in utero, like as you're developing inside. And it causes pain. So it's every month when the hormones are doing their thing and you have your ikura, actually those little areas outside are actually creating the storm of inflammation and mamai too.
Interesting.
Yep. And so it is a bit silent, and I think it's silent in the sense that we're feeling more comfortable to talk about ikura and what's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So pain.
What's not normal.
Yeah. Because there's some pain with ikura, but it shouldn't
crippling.
Pain that is crippling and affecting your quality of life.
Yeah. And how does one become diagnosed with it? Because that's I guess another problem for a lot of mamas, that they go to the doctors and they say, I'm in pain. They give you pills.
Yeah.
But then actually there should be a process. There should be, what is that process so that you can be diagnosed with that?
Yeah. And so that's quite the kaupapa at the moment, because traditionally it was all about putting a telescope in, or laparoscopy or keyhole surgery to have a look.
Wow.
And to see it. And we used to think if we just surgically removed it all,
it'd be fine.
You'd be fine. But we now know that actually the pain side of it is way bigger than just the physical side of it. Because we could see wahine, if you had that surgery, they might have a single spot of endometriosis, or actually not much to see, but they get all the symptoms.
Yeah.
And then equally, I've met wahine who will come and have surgery with me for whatever reason, and they're littered and they have heaps, but actually they don't have the symptoms. So the tricky thing about endometriosis is the amount of it doesn't mean you're going to have this many symptoms.
Sure.
It's really different, and every body and those pain fibers respond differently. But I think key is talking to your doctors about, do you think this could be
what I have or what I'm experiencing?
And then working on your symptoms and how to kind of reframe that.
Is there a cure for that, or how wahine is supposed to manage that?
Yeah, so not really a cure, if I'm honest, and it is about managing. So now we turn to early recognition of the symptoms, and people will put you on hormones to try and quieten down, to give everything a break. Yeah. So you might be prescribed the pill or the Mirena to stop the cycle every month and to stop all that inflammation, to quieten it all down. But really, I think that then just gives us a space to then work for the wahine on everything else that's going on for them. So their pain fibers will be, set off by anything after that, because they're so used to having these sensitivities that you might just have a tummy bug 1 month, but because your puku's so used to this disorder, it just sets off World War III inside. And even though it's not dangerous, your body's heightened to that kind of pain. Yeah. So then it's approaching everything else to do with your hauora. So good sleep, good lifestyle, good coping mechanisms for triggers and the ups and downs that we all have
knowing
in our
what
lives. And so the hormones are really just to try and quieten it down to then optimize everything else.
Oh man.
But you can have surgery, so I need to qualify that, particularly when it is deep and there's a lot. Surgery definitely does have its place. The tricky thing with surgery is we don't want you to have to go in all the time to have surgery, because that's a big deal too. It's still got its own risks.
Oh, I just want to hug all of our mum out there experiencing all of these symptoms of endo. And if you don't know that you've got it, or if you do know that you have it, I'm grateful to those wahine who are coming out and being vocal about the fact that that's what they have, because then it just helps everybody else. Yeah. And especially this kōrero. So thank you for sharing that. We've had some really cool kōrero on our Kia Ora Mama. We've had mums sharing their experiences, a lot of them saying things like, I was on this and then I got hapu, then I jumped on this and then I got hapu. So it is all about experience, but it is about like what you tried and what you didn't try. It's life, I guess. But please keep sharing, wahinema. Please keep sharing in our space, because you don't know who you're helping. And I certainly have experienced help from other wahine, and I know other wahine have too. So I just want to big mihi to you all. This has been a beautiful kōrero. I've learned heaps about tube tying, about the pills and why it's structured that way, and then now about endo. So he mihi nui tēnā ki a koe, Kasey.
And paitine kaupapa.
Yeah, and we need more of this. Nā reira wahine mā, this is what we're calling our whare tangata series, and it's about all things whare tangata, contraception. Here we've talked about endo and just a variety of kaupapa, and we're going to explore more, But if you haven't seen some of the other stuff that we've shared, that we've created, tēnā, hoki atu ki te mātaki. This kaupapa is contraception, so you might want to hashtag, try and find it through that, but it's under our kaupapa called Whare Tangata. So please go and have a watch, have a listen, have a whakarongo, have a mātaki, share in the conversation as well, all here in Kia ora Mama. Tēnā koutou katoa.